Welcome to week number 8 in this series of video tutorials on how to use your Logos Biblesoftware to study the Sabbath School lesson in the second quarter of 2015 on the Gospel of Luke. My name is Raymar Vettner. I'm teaching a New Testament at Montemorelos University in Mexico. If you go to my website, vettner.com, you can sign up for email notifications when I put out these weekly videos. And you can also download some various things we have on the website, my wife and I. I have a paper here about how Jesus used the book of Daniel. My wife, who is a PhD in Old Testament and the Psalms, has put out some study guides for the Psalms. So you can download some of our things here on this web page, or you can sign up for email notification on these Logos videos. Type in your name and email and register your email address. Logos is a lot more than just a Bible software. It's also a digital library, a platform for digital books. And a lot of you probably will spend some time just reading books in this system. It's, you know that Kindle from Amazon is a digital platform. You can buy a lot of books in the Kindle platform and read on a physical Kindle device, or you can read it in an app on your smartphone or tablet. But it's the same way with the Logos universe. It's a lot of books that you can read and highlight, and if you highlight something on one platform, like in an app on your tablet, on your iPad or smartphone, if you highlight something, underline something somewhere, then when you go to synchronize it and you go to like the Mac or the computer version and go into Logos there, you will find your highlighting there. So reading a lot of theological books, biblical books, helps you to know more about the Bible. I'm mentioning this because this week and the next week we are studying some of Luke's parables, and you might want to buy some more books about the parables, for instance. I know some of you have a lot of books already in your SDA packages, depending on what kind of package you have, bronze and silver. And I'm told that in a few weeks, SDA Gold and SDA Platinum packages will also be put out, and you can get more books about Adventist theology, Adventist interpretation of the Bible, and a lot of other books about the Bible that comes in these packages. Now, two resources that are particularly helpful when it comes to the parables, I'd just like to quickly point out to you. Kenneth Bailey was a son of missionaries in the Middle East. He and his parents were Americans, but they lived in the Middle East when he grew up, and then he chose to stay in the Middle East and do a lot of teaching in the New Testament in Egypt, Lebanon, and different countries. Kenneth Bailey knows a lot about Mediterranean and Middle Eastern culture. This culture today is a lot closer to the culture at the time of Jesus than people who live in other parts of the world today. So if you buy any books by Kenneth Bailey, you will learn a lot about the cultural background to the Gospels and to the parables. Bailey has specialized on the parables. So one book that's very good is The Cross and the Prodigal, Luke 15, through the eyes of Middle Eastern peasants. He has another one on Luke 15 called Jacob and the Prodigal. His interpretation of the Luke 15, that it is also in one way the history of Israel recaptured in the form of a parable. That interpretation has been picked up by leading scholars like N.T. Wright. I'm not completely sure and convinced myself yet. I think Jesus primarily told the parable to talk about his own mission to come and rescue lost people. But maybe there is something there about Israel's bigger history as well. I need to think more about that. Another good book, Jesus Through Middle Eastern Eyes, talks about a lot of parables as well as other parts of the Gospels. Very interesting. Another good book about parables is Klein Snodgrass' book Stories with Intent, a comprehensive guide to the parables of Jesus. And the emphasis here is on comprehensive. This has, in just a few years, it came out in 2008, it has become the standard reference work on the parables. It's written by an evangelical and conservative Christian, and he goes through all the different interpretations of each parable. And he argues for the interpretation he thinks is the most sound. So if you're puzzled by some of the parables, what does this parable really mean? Well, do check out Klein Snodgrass' 800-page tome on the parables. It does cost some money, but it's really an excellent resource that you might like to read. So when you are reading a book on your iPad or tablet or smartphone, do some highlighting, and you come back into your software on the Mac or the PC and you do some more digging into the Word of God here. And just to give you an example how this functions. I'll open this Jesus Through Middle Eastern Eyes by Kenneth Bailey, just to give you an example. He has a section here called Parables of Jesus. He has a lot of parables. One of the parables is Lazarus and the rich man, which is talked about in this week's lesson on Wednesday. So let's open up this, and you see I've done some highlighting here on my iPad. How can I find this highlighting again? Well, if you make sure that you have this this section here, it's called Locator Bar. If you click on the book icon, the top hand corner of the window, and make sure Show Locator Bar is selected. You also want to show Table of Contents if you want to see the content of the book. Alright, if you have this Locator Bar selected and you choose Annotation, now with these arrows up and down, you can jump down to highlighting, from highlighting to highlighting. Very useful. So, let's say I've been reading this book, here, and now I want to take some good notes. Last week I showed you how to make a document called a visual filter and a document called passage list. Today I want to explain the function called notes, which is really an incredible function. It will really help your Bible study over time if you make a lot of notes. So let's create a new note document. If you just click on it, it open wherever Logos wanted it to be open, but we can put it somewhere else. We can drag it to maybe this side of the screen. Let me also open a Bible to one part of the screen, maybe like this. Okay, so we have the book that I've been reading before and highlighting. By the way, how do you do highlighting on the iPad, iPhone, or the smartphone or tablet? It's very easy. You just hold down, you just push on the word, and then you drag with your finger. So you select some sentences or a paragraph, and then it will highlight it. On the computer, you need to go to Tools and Highlighting, and here you will have different options. Solid colors. You can have the text get different colors like this. Now the text is blue. Let me just erase that. You can have it as a background color, highlighting like this. The one I like the most, I think looks nice, is the highlighter pens, because it kind of looks like real highlighter. So, if you open this window, Tools, Highlighting, here you choose whatever color you want. If you don't want to always open this window, what you can do is you can assign some keyboard keys to some of these colors. Just erase this again. Let's say I want to use blue highlighter a lot. There is a drop-down menu. If you hover over blue highlighter, you can set a shortcut key, any number or any letter. Okay, I've already chosen B for emphasis markup. Alright, I've chosen this one up here, this kind of blue highlighting. Let me take another then. Let's take gray, and let's set the shortcut Well, I use G there for green. All right. Yeah. Let's just take K. Let's just take a letter here. And now I've set the letter K on the keyboard to gray. So whenever I read something, select with the mouse. If I now just press that letter K on the keyboard, it's highlighted with this color. All right. Let me just erase it again because that was not particularly important. But when you go through and read a book, you highlight it. Then later on, you might want to take some notes into a document so you have your own notes. Maybe you want to make a notes about parables. You can call it parables, or you can call it Gospel of Luke, or you can call it Sabbath School, second quarter 2015, or you can just call it Bible notes. If you want to have one big note file for all your Bible notes, you can do whatever you want. Okay, I had that before. Let's call it now parables. I made a note document called parables, and now whenever I study something about the parables and I want to put it into my note file, it will all end up here. I've opened the Bible, so let's go to Luke 16, and I've been reading something here, and let's see, what do I want to include? All right, so in Luke 16, 9 to 13 here, 9 to 13, Kenneth Bailey said that a few verses before the parable of Lazarus, there is a short poem on God and mammon. The poem can be understood as an introduction to the parable. As you might have noticed, if you have read this week's lesson already, he disagrees slightly with our Sabbath School lesson writer for this week. The Sabbath School lesson writer said on Wednesday, today is the day of salvation, middle of the page. The parable does not teach that there is something inherently evil in riches or something inescapably good in being poor. What it does teach is that the opportunity of being saved and living saved must not be missed while we are on this earth. Yeah, it's definitely a good lesson of this parable that we need to take opportunity and be saved now that we have the chance, because when we come to the afterlife, it is too late. That's a good point of the parable. But I'm not sure that I agree with the author of the lesson that money is not a point in this parable. I think it is a big point in this parable. This goes with the overall theological focus of the whole entire Gospel of Luke. Luke is very interested in how Jesus reaches out to the poor, tax collectors, women, the sick. People have a difficult life in this world. That seems to be a special focus of Luke. So I don't think it's a coincidence that the rich guy is a bad guy in this story and that the hero is a poor guy. That is part of Luke's overall emphasis. He's choosing these stories from Jesus where rich people often have moral flaws. So yeah, it's true, you don't have to be poor to be saved, and you're not automatically condemned if you're rich. But being rich is a big temptation. It is harder for the rich to become saved. Just look at what countries of the world the Adventist Church is growing the fastest. Where is it the easiest to do evangelism and win more people for the kingdom? That list of countries is exactly the opposite. It's reverse of the index of countries with the highest financial income. Countries like Norway and Europe, where I'm from, is harder to reach. Financially poorer countries in the world, easier to reach people for the kingdom. Because money, having too much money, is a curse when it comes to spirituality. It is harder for rich people who have enough money to feel the need for Jesus. And I think that's part of what Luke is trying to convey when he selected this parable from Jesus. So Kenneth Bailey says that, hey, look, before the parable of Lazarus, there is a little poem about God and mammon. So I've selected this passage in the Bible text. Right-click on it. Make sure you select the reference in the top right-hand column. So I selected the verse Luke 16, 9 to 13 with the mouse. And then when I right-click on that passage, it will say, oh, you want to have Luke 16, 9 to 13 as a reference? Yes, that's what I want to. So we click on that. And now we can, in the bottom left-hand side, add a note to parables. Parables is this note document that we've just created. And now we can make a note connected to this Bible text. Let's do that. So we can now type in our own discoveries and comments. Luke has a special emphasis on the poor. And we might want to copy something that we find in the book. You can just copy and paste it in here. Now we even have the reference, so if I want to go back and read more in the book later, I can just click Control and click on the link, and then we are taken to this book, if the book was not already open. So whatever kind of insights you get, put it into a note. Okay, what else do we have? All right, so when we keep reading in the parable, oh yeah, also after this little thing, you can't serve both God and money, we read that the Pharisees were lovers of money. And then we come to the rich man and Lazarus. So I don't think money here is a coincidence. Jesus is really making a point here that you can't love money if you want to love God and serve God. All right, so the rich man was clothed every day in purple robes. So just right click on verse 19, make sure reference is selected, Luke 16:19, and then we can add a note about verse 19. We can just copy this here, because that was such a good point. That every day in purple robes, he had other clothing, but purple cloth was extremely expensive at the time of Jesus, and only the truly wealthy could afford it. This man wanted to ensure that everyone knew he had money. Each day he was overpowered with the impulse to drive his gold-plated Cadillac. In short, he was a clothes horse with an inner need to constantly remind everyone of his wealth. He also wore fine linen. The word in Greek is byssos, which transliterates the Hebrew word boots, which in turn refers to quality Egyptian cotton used for the best underwear. There is a light humor here. This man not only had expensive outer robes, but in case anyone was interested, he also wore fine quality underwear. Alright, that's cool. We've now pasted it into our notes document. He feasted sumptuously every day. He did not therefore observe the Sabbath. Alright. Maybe you want to also add that. So you just copy and paste it in. Alright. About verse 2, the man has a name, the only one in Jesus' parable with a name. So maybe we want to add that in verse 20. So you can go through in verse by verse, add a note to this note document. Lazarus is the only one with a name in all of Jesus' parables. And to get a name means to have respect. Jesus didn't show the rich man the respect of giving him a name in the story, but the Lazarus has a name. What does it mean? Oh, it means God helps. All right, so we go through and we study. The rich man's food was thrown away in the rich man's house, but it was not given to Lazarus. It's a lot of good insights. And he probably laid so close to the house he could hear the conversation every day. Every day the rich man passed him as he entered and left the rich man's house. So every day everybody walked past this Lazarus. They could have given him some food or some money, but they chose not to. This thing about the dogs is also interesting. Verse 21. The dogs came and licked his sores. Luke 16:21. Add a note to parables. So you can either add notes verse by verse, or you can select the whole. You could also have selected the whole parable, like this. Right click, Luke 16:19 to 31 is now my reference, and I can add one note for the whole section. Depends on how you want to divide it up. It says in verse 21, "Moreover, even the dogs came and licked his sores." About this word moreover, in Greek it's actually the word Allah, but the dogs came and licked his sores. The Greek word Allah always indicates a contrast. That is true. Invariably, the English language tradition has understood the dog's actions to be in harmony with the cruelty of the rich man, and thus the Revised Standard Version translates the text as, "Moreover, the dogs came and licked his sores," and same with the ESV, which is based on the Revised Standard Version. Moreover, so the dogs were also cruel, just like the rich man. But for more than 1,000 years, most Arabic versions, translations, have accurately translated the Greek word Allah as a contrast, and thereby emphasized that the dogs were not joining the rich man in tormenting Lazarus. The ancients somehow discovered that if a dog licked wounds, they would heal more rapidly. Alright, I've got a lot of these references, can take away some of them. So we just have one reference to Kenneth Bailey here. That should be enough. So what the dogs were doing were actually good for the man. The poor man Lazarus probably enjoyed being licked by the dogs because there was healing powers in the saliva from the dogs. So what the message is in Jesus' parable is that even the dogs were nicer to Lazarus than the rich man was. So the rich man is worse than dogs because at least the dogs helped Lazarus. But the rich man did nothing. He had the money, he could have helped him, didn't even give him food. The rich man is really a bad character. That's the point of the story. Be careful how you use your money. You should use it for good and not for selfishness, because one day you will be held accountable. Alright, so I've been reading a book, I've been highlighting it on my tablet. Now I've gone into my computer, opened up the book here. I've made a note document called Parables, and I made references to these different verses. What's the point of this, you might ask? Well, the point of it is, maybe a couple of years from now, I have forgotten all about the second quarter of 2015 study on the Gospel of Luke in the Sabbath School. I'm just reading my Bible, having an interesting time, and then, hey, what's this little window doing? What's that icon doing? Oh, I have written some notes about it. By the way, you can change the color to any kind of color you want. Whatever. You can have all notes the same color, or you can give different colors to different notes. If you want to have some, one color for text in the Bible about the Sabbath, another color for text in the Bible about the sanctuary, another about prophecies, another about salvation and grace. So you can use colors if you want, different doctrines, or whenever you have insights from specific authors, maybe all Adventist author insights, you give one color, and other authors you give another color. You can use the color system whatever way you want, as long as you remember what you're doing with the colors. So when you're reading the Bible, and if you have visual filter, if you have your notes selected, after a while you might have a lot of note files, and you can turn these on and off. Now this is the notes I just made, the note file called Parable. I can turn these on and off if I want to show that I have notes in the note file called Parables or not. All right. Usually you just leave them on. So when you're reading the Bible a long time from now, you see this little icon. Oh, wait, I did some studying here. What is this? What did I discover back then? You click on it, and there you have your notes. So what you study was not lost. You have your notes with you. You can copy and paste insights from books. You can write your own notes that you discover when you are pondering the scriptures. After discussion in Sabbath School on Sabbath, you can go home and type it into your computer, and then you have notes from what you learned in Sabbath School in church. You can put all kinds of notes in here. because when you're reading the Bible later, you can discover what you learned earlier. Isn't that cool? Another way of finding things that you studied earlier is if you go up to the guides and do a passage guide one day. Let's say that some years from now you are going to preach a sermon on Luke 16, or you're going to use it in a small group you're part of, or it shows up in Sabbath School maybe again sometime in the future. You are going to the passage guide, you want to investigate Luke 16. So if you just type in Luke 16, here you have all the different stories in Luke 16, the rich man and Lazarus. So you're doing a passage guide on this parable. You have the usual things, you will find the commentaries you have, and you do some reading there. But then now there is a section called My Content, and what My Content is searching through your own documents. Look here, parables. Here is our note file that we made about the parable in Luke 16. So now I have discovered my own old notes. I had forgotten all about it. Hey, what's this? I can't remember this. This must be way back in 2015. All right, so you have forgotten all about it, but Logos has not forgotten it. When you create documents here, Logos will find it under My Content when you do any kind of passage guide or any kind of guide. You will find your content. If I go to maybe Revelation 17, I want to do a little study about the woman and the beast and the 7 kings. So I'm opening up commentaries and so on, and here we have my content. Revelation notes. What's that? Well, I happen to know that I have it because I'm teaching a class on the book of Revelation once a year. So I have all my teaching notes here. But in case I had forgotten, here they are. I type in a passage and Logos will find it for me. If I have made a note on a specific passage and I do a passage guide, Logos will find it and show me my notes. Very useful. So I'm telling all my theology students here at the university that if you start using Logos from the beginning of your studies, when you are done, you will have years of material that you've learned in class. If you've typed it into Logos as passage notes as you go along for several years, you have a ton of notes in Logos, and you will find it whenever you do any passage guide in order to prepare for a small group or a sermon or Sabbath School or whatever you have in the future. So that's the benefit of notes. Logos will find it for you later. It's not lost. It is kept forever. So this is Reimar Vettner. Thank you for joining me in this week number 8 about how to use notes. See you again next week.